to put the things up on YouTube. Okay, I put them up on YouTube, and why that's important is because it enables you to see them if later on, if necessary. But even more importantly, my other computers that we're having to download the materials is not crashing. Right, this is the key. Let's wait 5 minutes to 1:05. And here's Cindy. Hi, Cindy. And also, I want to say thank you very much. I want to say thank you very much for your. I want to say thank you very much for your effort on your papers. You know, some people did a group thing. I get it, but you know, most people are trying to do what they can, and I appreciate it. And I think if you put some effort into it, just by thinking about it and working with the materials, you're going to get a dramatic difference, if that makes sense, in what we're doing. Does anyone have any questions? We're starting. It's 1 o'clock. I mean, before other people come, does anyone have any questions about the comments that were made? Small they were, because there are 50 students in the class. Or are you okay where we are? At least you saw the two. I'm going to be doing the last assignment this weekend. Okay, so by Sunday, you guys you'll have that as well. So let me say that. And one of the students, he asked me about it, but I didn't see his email. So hopefully he'll send me later. Let's go. All right. So what have you gotten out of anything? What were your takeaways from Chris Voss? Also, that last class is also on Chris Voss, the last class, which was on, you know, mirroring and stuff like that. What did anybody get out of that? Did anybody get anything out of Chris Voss? What are your takeaways? If you learned one thing from Chris Voss, what would you think it would be? Anybody? Yes.
It would also be like labeling and mirroring would be similar to that. So you would understand that person's how that person feels, and you would feel like empathetic for that person. It basically works. They basically both work in the same concept.
Okay, I think that's true. What does anybody else think? What does anybody else? Does anyone else think? What about Chris Voss? Why do you think I've focused on him? And I gave you, it's kind of, I put a lot in. If you're paying attention, you put a lot in, but it's been kind of easy. I don't want to make it so it's like, oh my God, I've got to learn all these 50 things, because most of the time we're not going to remember 50 things, right? If we remember 1 or 2 things, we're successful. So my question to you is, Nicholas said something. Anybody else? What would be a takeaway that you saw from Chris Voss? Because it's going to lead us into the next area. Anybody? Because if you think about it, he sort of says a couple of things. Yes, communication. Now, let's see what Alex says in the chat. Communication doesn't have to be difficult as long as you listen. That's really true. That's really, really true. Communication doesn't have to be difficult as long as, let me put the chat up there so people can see it that way. It doesn't have to be difficult as long as you listen. As long as you listen. And one of the things he points out is that every human being processes information through their nervous system. If you have functioning eyes, you have functioning ears, right? That's the way you absorb information. And he's counting on that. He doesn't rely upon saying all the right things all the time. It's really listening to people and feeding them back in a way what they want to hear. Why do you think that's so important? Let's talk about just sort of a mini recap. Why do you think that's so important? What's the one thing you want to do when you negotiate, do you think? You have to develop what? Yes, Nicholas.
A strong communication skills, and you also have to also develop tactical empathy. Do not always say yes. Do not always master the no in that type, because you would want to get no. If you want to say no, then if either your life's at stake or they will actually listen to you and they'll give up.
Absolutely. So Sinja put in the comment, I'll put it on my other screen. I have 2 computers I'll bring you. Sinja said, get them to trust you. The one thing you want, that's exactly right. Sort of building on what Nicholas just said, right? He's talking about more of the strategies, and then you said, get them to trust you. You want to build rapport with the other human being that's in front of you. If you can develop rapport with that person and they trust you, they're more likely to agree with you. Does that make sense? All right. So those are very important points. But tied to that, we're going to another section now. This is part of the last assignment. So that's why it's good to talk about it now. Everybody has a story. That story, what we've talked about up until now, is how to build rapport with a person, how to make them see you and you see them. Not to manipulate them, but to build rapport with them so that they can, have mutual understanding, right? But what makes people not have mutual understanding? I said this to Nicholas. I don't know if you remember. I said, do I know your story? I said the last time, do I know your story? Do I know who you dated, whatever? I don't know what's happened to you. And I said, the only way I can learn is to listen. But we need to go even deeper than this and figure out, why are people different? You say, well, I'm Chinese, or my family immigrated from Europe, or my family came from the Caribbean, or I'm not a black bold professor, right? We're all different. But what does that mean? And those meanings that we assign to things are really important. The meanings that we assign to people and things are related to, what we got in there, let's view the waiting room, admit and admit, are tied to their stories, are tied to their stories. And I know everybody goes, what is he talking about, a story? Because I've taught this class now to over 800 people, over almost 1,000, maybe 1,000, over 1,000 people I've taught this negotiation class to. And my approach is talking about stories, which is taken from the book Difficult Conversations, which you have in your reading list. But people still don't get it. They said, what do you mean I have stories? Let me give you a basic story. Let's, every single one of you, I'm assuming, and you can put it in the chat if you want, put it in the chat, because I have my other screen up. I don't have to pull it up where we are now. The basic thing is this. How do you know you're loved? Here's a perfect example. Anybody? How do you know you're loved? Yes, Nicholas.
The only way is like when they actually tell you that they have strong feelings for you and they will respect you no matter what.
Okay. Now he told us, and that's exactly what he said. Only if they tell you, and they have and so Sinja put in the chat, she put in the chat, get them to trust you, the emotion we feel, right? But we all use the term love, and it is the emotion we feel. But guess what? We have different rules which are tied to our stories about love. We all have this mythical idea. We're going to see these people. We're going to fall in love with them. We'll have children. We'll dance or whatever we do. Right? We'll have fun. But everyone has a different rule to their stories. As one person put in there, Sinja put in, the kind of subject contributes to how every child different when they're raised by the same parents the same way. Yes, Gerolamo, I agree. I think everyone has different mindset about it. If you listen to Nicholas carefully, we learned his story for love. He said, they tell you, he used his hands. He's the only one on the screen. So if some of you are watching, or some of you may be listening, he used his hands. They tell you, and then they tell you about the emotion. Some people say, I'm tired of you telling me about you love me. Show me. Ever heard that? Some people say, I don't want to hear it. I want you to show me. Show me you love me. Telling me you love me doesn't mean anything. Show me you love me. Aha. Here we go. Two different people saying the same exact thing. Listen about what I'm saying to you. So simple, but it's powerful. Two people saying the same thing about something so basic about love. But the rules and the stories behind it are radically different. Does that make sense what I just said? Let me give you an example. And I talked about this in the context of, I think it was the 6 human needs. Now we go back to that again. Just like actions are stronger than words. That's your belief, Sinja. Notice what, so now if you were dating or in a relationship with Nicholas, you said actions are stronger than words, but notice what he says, if they tell you. That doesn't mean that he devalues someone giving them something. Like if you came every day and you gave him $1,000, he'd say, I'm sure they like me. they like me. Right? But maybe for him, hearing the words, you care about me, you need me, you love me, are different than someone who has a word grouping like actions are stronger than words. Why am I telling you that? Because those little phrases that we use, actions are stronger than words, are what they call metaphors. And metaphors are stories. We often have little stories running in our brain, little metaphors that act as prisons around which we think our lives have to exist. You know, when we get in the morning, we procrastinate. Why do I always procrastinate? Why am I so stupid? Those are metaphors that actually impact us physiologically and also impact us on how we interact with other people. Does that make sense? So we have to be careful when we assume we're right. You know, and I've been in this situation before. I've been in a situation where I was, you know, I used to say, hey, you know, don't tell me, let me show me. You know, I had one time I had to give away tickets to a Broadway show because the person was late. Because my value, when I said, when a person's consistently late with you, what do you think that, what kind of message do you think that they're telling you? Do you think that you feel valued or devalued?
And they don't care.
They don't care. So I'm one of those people who got really upset. I was dating this person. They were a professional actress. I was a professional actor at the time. We had finally gotten some tickets to some Broadway show, and I was a student, maybe the same age as some of you are right now. Maybe I was about 28, 30. And I had finally gotten the show Cats for Broadway, right? We didn't know anybody in the cast, so I couldn't get the tickets. Sometimes we could. This particular time, we got the tickets. The person was late. And I was fuming. The doors had been shut. Woman runs up with her child saying, they've shut the thing I wanted to buy. We came from wherever, the Oshkosh, Kansas. I don't know where they came. And I gave my tickets away. Shows you how petty I was, right? In some ways. I wasn't flexible. I didn't know the things I know now, quite frankly. But I had a rule in a story that said, if you're late all the time, you don't respect me. And if you don't respect me, my rule was you can't what? Love me. Didn't matter how many times they told me you love me. Actions are stronger than words. That was my rule. My story I'm giving you is that I went to the Broadway show, and that's a story, and then you can see the rule that I developed. If you love me, you'll what? Show me. Right? So why is this important? Because some of you in your papers that you were kind enough, some of you gave longer answers than others. If you try to use the miracle 3 words and it's about with your mother or your significant other, and it may not work. Somebody said, it didn't work, Professor. I said, great. I said, great, it didn't work. Why would I say it's great? That Chris Voss, who I think is phenomenal in his book, that it didn't work. Because it wants to show you another level of why it won't work all the time. Because people have stories that are tied to who they think they are. And they're not going to allow you to just change who they are by a couple of words. Does that make sense? If you're in a battle in your relationship and the person says, you never spend time with me, I don't feel valued, I don't feel seen. You saying you don't feel valued, you don't feel seen, it's not going to work. They're going to say, that's what I'm telling you. I don't feel valued. I've been telling you for the last 2 years. I'm out of here, right? So I want you to be able to understand you're not using these things as tricks, but you're using these as tools to open up your life and the life of the person you're interacting with. Okay? This is the first foray. We're moving in a little bit different directions. Does anyone have any questions about before we start? Because what I'm going to do is I'm going to have us look at a video. You know, that's what I'm going to have us do. I'm going to have us do a share like I did before and have you guys, if you have some comments about it, I want you to, I think this guy's story will resonate with some of you, not everybody, but it resonates with me. I've seen it numerous times, but I want you to see it. So does anyone have any questions about what we've said so far? Or is it like still murky, right? I talked about 3 things. Love. People can use the same word, but have different meaning to it. And then from that meaning, they have different rules. So stories set up rules about how we're going to live our lives. And what's really scary is other people's stories that we've accepted since we were younger can often determine how we see our lives and whether we're valuable or not. And that's the story we're going to see now. Does that make sense with everybody? All right, so let's see. Let's go. Share the screen. Go there, hopefully see it. Let's see. Boom.
People put on us and how these labels change our life stories. Danish philosopher Soren Kierkegaard has said, once you label me, you negate me. Negating, in my view, not only means denying the existence of my truth, but also my potential. One common way we allow others to negate us is by letting anyone other than ourselves to write our life stories for us. In the field of social psychology, there is a phenomenon called stereotype threat. It was first used by Steele and Aronson in 1995. According to the idea of stereotype threat, individuals belonging to stereotype groups can be affected by just reminding them of their group membership. And then what happens? They begin to conform to the negative stereotypes others have put on them, and their performance gets worse. For example, research shows that stereotype threat negatively affects the academic performance of Hispanic individuals. And it affects the math performance of women. It even affects the math performance of white men in the presence of Asian math superiority stereotype. Stereotype threat has also shown to affect working memory itself, making it that much more harder to do complex and intellectual tasks. Now, I'm going to tell you my story. I'll share with you the impacts of stereotype threat in my life. I will explain how I started to resist the labels put on me and took back my life and started to write my own life story. While I talk to you on this topic, I ask you to consider the following question. Who writes your life story? I was born in a very tiny village in South India where there was no running water inside homes. People went into the woods to use for toilet. I was born into a caste called Maravas, classified by our state government as most backward caste or denotified community. India has a rigid social hierarchy of caste system for thousands of years. Maravas means bravery, but they're also called as robbers due to the history of highway robbery. The British, who ruled India for a long time, have officially labeled our community as habitually criminal. I can give you some examples for these sorts of behaviors in my community. For example, my paternal grandfather stole goats. My maternal grandfather cut a man's leg off, and was chased out of the state by police. Even today, in my native village, none of my first cousins have earned a high school diploma. It is widely believed in my community that top-notch education belongs to the light-skinned, higher caste Brahmins. Being born into the Maravar community, academic expectations in my life was quite low, but potential for stereotype threat was quite high. In that region, light skin is still often more highly praised than education. While growing up, it is not unusual for teachers of light skin, higher caste to beat students in the classroom. Almost always, the brunt of the burden falls on lower caste students. I was no exception. In fact, I was one of the worst academically performing students in the class. So, I was expected to be beaten, sometimes brutally assaulted. For me, this kind of violence inside the classroom made me lose interest in academics itself. Although I continued to attend school, I didn't listen to students or didn't believe that learning could help me in any way or any form. Years went by, I just drifted away, performing academically in the abysmal ranks. When I reached 8th grade, I was made to repeat the year one more time. When I reached high school, my freshman year, the math teacher, light-skinned, higher caste, will bring the graded papers with the good grades at the top and the bad grades at the bottom, and will start distributing the papers. When it comes to the failed grades, he will pick up the cane and start beating the students who have failed the exam. When it comes my turn to receive the paper, and when I walk up in front of the classroom, he will use all his might to unleash it in my palm. Standing there, receiving 15 to 20 lashes is something. Every time that cane hits my hand, I felt like 1,000 watts of electricity passing through my body. It is very hard to resist tears standing there in front of the class. I will go back home, try to hide my swollen up palms and cracked and bleeding fingers from my mother. I will sit next to her on the floor in the kitchen to eat the food she has made for the day. When my bleeding fingers touches the food she has cooked, the spicy curry where I come from, we eat with bare hands. Spicy curry burns through the fingers and burns the heart, and my floodgates of eyes opens up, and I will cry my heart out. When I reached the senior year of high school, everyone in the school believed I'm going to fail multiple subjects. It is a big deal because the state government conducts the senior exam, and graduation rate brings honor or disgrace to the school. I didn't care one way or the other. I was accustomed to living by the labels others have given me.
Well, I'm in a class.
One fine day, the school brought in a science tutor slash motivational speaker. He talked about setting goals and aspiring big. He wrote down the names of local engineering colleges on the board. Where I come from, engineering and medicine are the most coveted programs. He talked about if we all work hard, maybe one or two of us in the classroom can go to the local engineering colleges. I'm the class comedian, so I wanted to make a joke. So I looked at him and said, "Is there a better school than that?" He said, "Indeed. In fact, there's a school called College of Engineering, Guindy, Anna University. It is the oldest engineering school in India. More than 100,000 people write entrance examination, but only 435 seats," he said. I said, I looked at him nonchalantly and said, "Well, that's where I'm going." Everyone in the class laughed. I was so proud of my joke. Went back home, happy. My mom saw my face. This is not the usual face I see my son. She asked me what happened. I told her. What she said was unexpected and surprising. She said, why don't you go to that school? If you work hard, you could provide better for the family. Maybe even you could take care of your younger brother with autism after I am gone. Even though those were strong words from my mother, that's not going to change the entrenched belief as a poor academic student overnight. However, a seed was planted at that moment. Within few weeks, I sought out the help of the science tutor / motivational speaker. He was very kind and positive to me. I was thinking, luckily, he didn't have me as a student. He talked about setting goals, aspiring, and he talked about an Indian monk named Swami Vivekananda. He quoted Vivekananda to me. Take up one idea. Make that one idea your life. Think of it. Dream of it. Live on that idea. Let the brain, muscles, nerves, every part of your body be full of that idea and just leave every other idea alone. This is the way to success, he quoted. I was pumped. Next day, I walked into my computer science teacher's laboratory and I asked him for a printout, Get Anna, my new dream school, Anna University. He looked at me, who's this for? It's for me. Hill, come here. Sit next to me. I went and sat next to him. He asked, have you ever passed mathematics exam in the last 2 years? I said, no, sir. That's what I thought. Even the best students in our school will not get into College of Engineering, Guindy. As far as I know, none from our school history has ever got into that school. If you aspire to pass all the classes and go to college, that is a big accomplishment for you. Setting such a far and big goal will result in disappointment. Although I didn't understand what he was saying at that moment, he was asking me to conform to the labels others have given me. It was a defining moment for me. I couldn't lift my head and look him in the face. I felt so shameful. I mustered every ounce of courage in my body to hold on to that small hope I had and to proceed. I asked him quietly, can I please have the printout? He grudgingly nodded. I went and took the printout, went home, pasted it on the wall, took a long look at it, and I started to study. I studied an average of 5 hours every day for the last 3 months into the state exam. Results came. Everyone in the school was shocked. I have secured an 85% in math and 70% in sciences. I even got into some of the local arts colleges, but none of the engineering colleges are going to give me an admission for that score. My dad said, I am so excited, my son. You have to pick a choice and go. Dad, I'm not going to do this. I'm going to try one more time for College of Engineering, Guindy. He said, you're going to waste a year and not going to have these opportunities you have now. I looked at my mother, and she looked back at me for a long time, and she said, let him try. Research by Aronson and others have shown one common way to reduce stereotype threat is to teach students about the malleability of intelligence itself. Like the muscles in our body, the brain could get stronger by persistent effort and hard work. My mother's words, "Let him try," made me believe in the malleability of my intelligence. Maybe I can achieve my dream. Maybe I can become as intelligent as other Brahmin students. If only if I tried so hard. That made me think of Swami Vivekananda's quote, "Take up one idea, make that one idea your life, think of it, dream of it, live on that idea, let the brain, muscles, nerves, every part of your body be full of that idea, and just live on that idea and leave every other idea alone, and this is the way to success." I needed a very specific goal, a score of 285.45, a cumulative score out of the 5 different exams I would retake to get into my dream school. I believed if I scored the 285.45, I don't need to use my affirmative policy of caste. I can compete along with other Brahmin students of the state. But to score that score, I have to study like I have never studied ever in my life. No one has ever done. I promised my mother I will not watch TV for a year. I went and told my friends, "I'm going to be hanging out with you guys for a year." Went home, started studying. I studied 18 hours a day. I slept 4 hours. Months rolled on. I started reducing my food indulgence because I love food. Indulging in food made me more sleepy. As there were only few months remaining to the final exam, I was delirious due to exhaustion, sleeplessness, and no fun. My dad said I was regurgitating chemistry equations in my sleep in the 4 hours. I pushed on. When the results came, I scored a perfect score in mathematics. A 98% in sciences. And I got into my dream school. Here's the kicker. I scored exactly 285.45. Not a 0.01 more, not a 0.01 less. The exact score, I wrote it down, laminated, and carried it around with me in my pocket and looked at it every day. That experience taught me the greatest lesson of my life. I do not need to live by the labels others have given me. Even if those labels are from my parents, teachers, friends, families, relatives, anyone. I create my labels. I write my life story. I am the architect of my life. I've been told I will never amount to anything good in life. I've been told I will never go to a good college. I've been told, just like my caste ancestors, I will end up in jail as a criminal. All those labels were shattered into pieces the minute I got into the dream school. But you would think the labels will end there. It kept coming in different forms, in different ways, through different people, from Indians to Americans. I'm sure some of you have experience with labels. Some of you might not even know that it's happening. I've been told my English would never be good enough because I failed the test of English as a foreign language twice. I've been told I will never ever get a visa to go to the United States, especially after the consulate rejected my visa. I've been told I will never be able to sustain in the United States with almost no money. I've been told I'm not an intellectual. I've been told I don't have the talent to do a doctoral level research. I've been told teaching jobs in the universities and colleges are not easy to come by, so not to bother. I've been told I should drop acting and dancing if I want to be considered as a serious scholar of political science. It turned out to be all those labels are not true. I went on to accomplish all those goals. More. Some labels you shatter one time and move on. Some labels you shatter regularly. For example, when I was told I'm not an intellectual label, I ripped the label and put I am an intellectual. So I set a goal to read 100 nonfiction books every year. For the last 10 years, I've been reading 1,300 plus nonfiction books. And my goal for the next few decades of my life to read 5,000 plus nonfiction books. I am not saying this to brag, but I am telling my audience to remind this is the same kid who stood in front of the class and received those beatings passively, actively stand in front of my university class and encourage my students to identify the labels others have given them and to change those labels. Through that, change their life narratives. Now, I ask my audience, what labels are you carrying that others have given you? Who writes your life story? Thank you very much.
There you have it. Who writes your life story? I hope you got something from that, because I think all of us come through different ways and different challenges. It may be family members, it could be friends, it could be significant others, it could be classmates, it could be, I'm at Brooklyn College, so that means this. So I want you to think about your life a little differently. That's why I chose this gentleman. I always get a little emotional because I don't know if anyone saw the very popular film Slumdog Millionaire. And that's a fantasy sort of thing, and he gets there and becomes a millionaire and all this thing, right? But this is real life. You don't have to have a miracle of circumstances and situations for you to change your story. All you have to do is decide. What do you want to be? What do you want to achieve? Change the stories and the rules that run your life, and you will change your destiny. And it will impact how you talk and speak to other people and how you negotiate with your life for the rest of your life. Does that make sense to everybody a little bit? All right. So actually, we've reached the witching hour for a little bit, it's a little earlier. It's 1:40. So I don't have time to show you the next series of videos, but we're going to meet in again next week if that's okay with everybody. I'll have more fun when I say this was an impactful video. This was to set you up to understand what does it mean when he talks about stories. This gentleman gave you story after story after story that was impactful in his life and how he had to rewrite the story. Simply identifying, as he says he teaches his class to do that, simply identifying those stories that are often impactful and stopping you from achieving your greatness is curative, meaning you say, this doesn't make sense. Why am I doing this? Why am I limiting myself? Let me figure out what to do. So please, for the next class, look at the assignment, begin the reading. It's not a lot of pages. Begin the reading for those that, and let's discuss it, because you're going to have some questions about what you're supposed to do, even though I went over this already. It used to happen all the time. People would come to me after 2 or 3 weeks in person, and I'd go over it after class, after class, after class, and they go, I still don't know what I'm supposed to write. So I get it. So don't take a shortcut. Take time and value your life and your time. Are we okay, everybody? All right. Please have a beautiful afternoon. Live with passion, and see you soon. Okay? Thank you. Thank you very much. Bye now.